You're listening to the Doc Lounge podcast. This is a place for candid conversations with healthcare industry's top physicians, executives, and thought leaders. This podcast is made possible by Pacific Companies, your trusted advisor in physician recruitment. I am your host, Summer Gilbert, and I am the Director of Marketing and Branding here at Pacific Companies. And with me today is Director of Recruitment, Teddy Duran. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is intended to be an open forum. Any personal beliefs, views, or opinions represented in this episode are that of our guest and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Pacific Companies. So please have an open mind and remember that this podcast is not a news source, but rather a safe and neutral platform for candid conversations. Today on the podcast, we are honored to have Dr. Bustos, one of the top ophthalmologists in the nation. You are out of Nashville, is that correct?
Correct. Suburb, like Murfreesboro, Tennessee is where I actually am. But yeah, this is essentially Nashville.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for spending your precious time and talking to us today on our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And to start the podcast, if you don't mind giving our listeners a quick educational history, where you went to school, where you did your training, kind of bring us up to date to where you are today.
Okay. I was raised in Texas, in Houston, and I did undergraduate at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. I did a master's degree in graduate school at the University of Texas in San Antonio, did medical school at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and internship as well, and then did a residency at Vanderbilt University in Nashville.
Why did you decide to go into ophthalmology?
That's a good question. When I first thought about going to medical school, I thought, I'd love something very anatomical based. I loved anatomy. My master's degree was in anatomy. I taught anatomy with medical students. I thought I'd love something like that. So I kicked off around a few specialties like radiology, very anatomical based specialty. And then I went my third-year rotation through radiology and wanted to pull all my toenails off one by one. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, man.
But really where I got into ophthalmology to begin with, or even thought about it, is just with my research, my master's degree. We did a research for herpes virus particles in and around the eye, and so I dissected a bunch of cadavers and found the nervous tissue back there, and was able to get herpes DNA out of it. Anyway, that got me started looking at the eyes, and I thought, this isn't all that bad. I realized it's a great mix of clinic and surgery, and you get the immediate gratification of having someone go from light perception vision to 20/20 the next day. It's just not a whole lot better feeling than that. And I get to play with cool toys.
Yeah. What's funny is I kind of pride myself. Like I can see medical stuff and not get grossed out. Well, I went to my dad's LASIK eye surgery and the doctor let me go in and watch.
Oh, that's nice.
And they took the scalpel and I watched like from a window on a screen. Like,
oh, sure.
Yeah. So they took the scalpel and sliced the top of the eye and flipped it up. And I woke up. So apparently I passed out. And I woke up and I had like a Snickers bar and an orange juice, and I was on this couch in their back room. And
nice.
Apparently I just remember watching it and I was like, oh, the eye is so different to me.
You're not unlike a lot of other medical professionals. So many people can say, I can do anything. I can pull someone's colon out. I can work on someone's brain. I cannot touch the eyes.
Oh yeah. That's, I'm sure that's probably a lot of people's feelings.
I just got like the chills.
It's a unique person that wants to do this, I think.
Yeah, for sure. If you didn't choose ophthalmology, what would you have gone into?
I probably would have done ENT.
Yeah.
Nice. That's another.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the eyes.
Yeah. So for ophthalmology, you probably have to be really precise, like with your hands. It feels like that's a very, very specific organ you don't want to mess that up.
No, not really. No, you don't. So yeah, it's a very detailed surgery. We do microsurgery every day, and most of the time we do it on people who are awake and coughing and moving. But yeah, I used to think when I was early starting my medical career that there's no way I could do something like that. So I just dismissed it off the top of my head. But got talking to a few ophthalmologists, a few residents are like, no, it's not really what everyone thinks it is. You don't have to be born to be able to do this stuff. You just have to be able to see well, have control, and and practice and work. So that's what I did.
How long is the ophthalmology residency?
So a residency ophthalmology is internship plus 3, so 4 total, but 3 specifically for ophthalmology.
Oh, okay.
I was actually last week. I was up in South Bend doing a profile for another client, and on my layover from we went from Chicago into Arizona, but I was actually sitting next to a guy who was interviewing for cornea fellowships. So he had already done.
Nice.
He did his ophthalmology residency in, I think it was Birmingham, Alabama. But we just
Right.
It's kind of funny the things that you start talking about with people over a beer at the airport bars. But he was
Right.
he was actively interviewing. So he was going up because you said you went to BYU, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So small world, my wife did nursing school at the University of Utah, but this gentleman was actually
cool.
going up to the University of Utah to do an interview, and he had done one in Chicago, did one in like Phoenix, so he was kind of all over the place. But it was pretty sharp. So we got to talking like kind of similar to you, like why did you go into ophthalmology and what made you continue? Because I had actually did a search for retina as well,
Right.
and that's a really small pool of candidates. It's almost I was talking to candidates probably within at least the contiguous states, but even further out, and they all knew about this practice. It's just like there's just not a whole lot of them.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my next question. Is there not too many ophthalmologists out there? I mean, it's not one of the
It's a pretty small pool. Just like ENT is another, otolaryngology is also another one that there's not a.
It's a high demand for.
Oh, high demand. Yeah.
Relatively, there's not a lot. The forecast for the need for ophthalmologists in the next 10 years really it just keeps growing because we keep living longer. So more people need eye surgery. We need more ophthalmologists. So there really is not going to be enough to meet the demand. But we're probably more than, say, pathologists or something. But yeah, there's not a lot of us. It's a relatively small industry.
Are you a private practice? Do you have a private practice or?
I am.
Okay.
I'm private practice here. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You have your own outpatient surgery center where you do LASIK and all that cool stuff too?
We I operate out of a ambulatory surgery center associated with a hospital, a couple of them in this area, but we are actually building our own surgery center
Nice.
next door, so that'll be convenient. Yep, have a laser there, and everything.
You got some partners that you work with, or are you just solo kind of sharing the space?
Well, I have got partners, but they pretty much man other locations throughout town, so I'm kind of here at the guy in Murfreesboro.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone coming out of training that's thinking about going into ophthalmology?
Oh, that's a good question. Advice. I think the advice is do it because you love it and because you feel like you can make a difference.
Especially in medicine, if you go after the money, if you don't love it, you'll be miserable. You may be good at it, but you won't enjoy yourself,
Absolutely. I mean, if you go after the money, there's way too much irritations and frustrations about medicine to pursue money. If you want to get rich, do something else, man. This is just not the gig. You can do it, but it's painful.
Well, the eyes, like you said, it's kind of a immediate gratification. Not like orthopedic surgery, you got to work on them, and then there's rehab, and 3 months down the road they start walking again. But to see someone leave your office and a day later they can see is probably pretty.
I mean, it's I have a view that most people never get. I mean, the people that just come in and they're the complete sorry, pathetic life because they can't see, so they've stopped doing this. They stop driving. They stop seeing friends. They stop doing their photography. They stop doing everything. And some of these people get to the point where they're coming to your office. They shuffle in with a walker because they can't see anything, and their life has just kind of gone to a tailspin because they can't see. And
Yeah.
many of them don't even think, oh, maybe I should go see if I have cataracts, or maybe I should go see an optometrist and see if glasses will help. They just don't know. So by the time they make it to my office, they've got these cataracts that are as white as the walls in your office, and they can't see the hand in front of your face. And so when you take someone like that, and you work on them, and the next day they come back and they're 20/20 and they see better than you do. Uh, yeah, it's pretty dang amazing.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Because that would be the misconception. I wear glasses. I've been wearing glasses for 8 years, but it's the fear of, like Summer said, you going in there and having your your eyelid, part of your eye lifted, and is it with anesthesia? Is it really that bad?
Oh, no. Cataract surgery is really easy to tolerate because while most people are awake for the surgery, you get some sedatives through your IV, and most people end up just nodding off anyway because of that. But it's not bad with the local anesthetic, both on and inside the eye. You don't feel any pain at all. You feel some pressure, you feel a little water, but no, it's not bad. And you don't see anything happening to you at all either. You just see this kind of Pink Floyd light show. So really, it's not a hard surgery to have. It's really quite easy. It's just a little bit weird, and for a lot of people, it's hard to get over the phobia.
Yeah,
that's for me. That would be for me.
That's where I spend a lot of my time and energy is educating patients and just saying, hey, look, I've done this a lot. I think after looking at you in my microscope and talking to you, I think you're going to do great. Just remember that this is just strange, weird. If you can trust me with weird, you're going to walk out of there and go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just had cataract surgery, and I'm going out to have lunch right now. So it takes some time to sit there in front of the patient face to face and eyeball, and just kind of peer into them and say, hey, look, you're going to be fine with this. I hear what you're saying. I know your fears, but it's really not bad. And so many people, almost to a man or woman, walk out of there and go, that wasn't bad. I said, yes, exactly, like I told you.
Yeah.
I would say the reason most people, myself included, is the fear of going under. If your eyes are so sensitive, I don't know. It's actually very reassuring to hear that.
Well, Teddy, maybe now you should go get LASIK. Go fly out and make an appointment with Dr. Bustos.
I know a lot of people who have gotten when I got my glasses, the doctor, when he did my eye exam, said he didn't know how long, but I was basically walking around with one arm tied behind my back. That's how bad my eyes were. Like how bad my eyes were. He did this whole test, and then he goes, I want to have a little fun with you. And so when they do the glasses, they do the different lenses to see which one works for you.
Sure.
And so he put his finger through, and he actually, when he got to the one, there was no lens on it. He touched my eye. It was just to show that I really couldn't see anything. He was just like, he thought it was fun. I didn't think it was as funny as he did, but it was interesting to see how blind I was.
What is one of the most interesting cases that you've seen so far?
Oh, wow. Interesting. A few years ago, I was practicing out in Eugene, Oregon, and I was on call for my group, and I got a call to come to the ER one night, and it was man versus dog. Dog won. So I walked into the trauma bay, and there was a gentleman whose half of his face was all gnarled up. His eyelids, eyeball, his cheeks, everything around his eye was all gnarled up. And then he had this line of stitches over the other eyebrow, which I'll get to later. But it turns out he had a bull mastiff, like 220-pound dog. He would roll around the floor with and play with. And this guy he wasn't a waif. He was like 6'2", 230, and he would roll around the floor with this dog. Well, the dog got a little too aggressive and bit his face off, and his eyeball was open, so he had open globe injuries. His eyeball was flat.
Oh.
It's got eyelid parts everywhere, and yeah. So I spent much of the night actually sewing his face and his eyeball back together again. And then I learned afterwards in the morning, upon talking to him again, I learned that he had actually been in that very same ER a week ago. For the very same thing, the dog actually bit a hole in his other eyebrow, which is why he had the stitches over there, but didn't have nearly the trauma that this time. So, it was quite gruesome, actually.
How is that? How you're on call? You get the call. It's obviously a trauma case. How do they there's got to be some element of surprise when you walk in and you're just like,
Oh,
wait, what? Wait, hold on. Yeah,
yeah.
like not exactly what I thought. Not exactly what I thought, right?
Definitely. I've gotten, in similar kinds of presentations or patients, I've gotten comments like, "Oh, we had a guy who has a laceration from a dog bite," and I walk in and it looks like World War III.
Ugh.
So, and sometimes they're just like, and sometimes some of the staff is just overly cautious, and they're worried about his eyelids swelling up, and the eyes gonna pop out. It's so much pressure here and that, and they will build it up to, I think, more than what I would expect it to be built up because they just aren't sure. I'd rather have someone be, overcautious than undersell something, especially when vision's at stake.
Yeah.
Because you said you're in Kentucky and Eugene's and other great areas, very outdoorsy. Any hunting trauma things happen?
You know, Honestly, I really don't see a lot of hunting trauma. Hunters are usually pretty smart. They're wearing their goggles, things like that. I don't see a lot of that. I do see just a lot of dumb trauma. Period. And not even so much trauma. I once had a girl in residency who she was 9 or 10, and I got called to the ER in the middle of the night, and she had a tick in her eye. So I said, okay. I went to the ER and came by the room and found her spread out in a bed with three people all over her, picking ticks all over her body off.
Oh my God.
Well, it turns out, I don't know if she was sleeping without a tent or whatever, but she was out in the woods with her parents or family or whatever. She literally probably had 500 ticks all over her and several in the eyes I had to pull out.
Oh, so this might be a stupid question because I don't know how this works. But when you get say that trauma, that dog bite trauma, say it happened and you got some of the neck, or do you go to surgery? Are you with a general surgeon and then trauma surgeon and yourself at the same time, or how does that work?
No, that's not a bad question at all. Actually, it really depends on what is involved. Generally, if it's just the eyelid, it'll just be me. And sometimes if the trauma is extensive enough, I might I might tag team with a trauma surgeon or a plastic surgeon, but sometimes they're just not available. So in that case, it was just me, and no one was else available. So I sewed his eyeball shut, sewed up his eyelids, sewed up his face. So it really just depends. But we're usually so specialized and do things at odd times and odd operating rooms that there's not a lot of teamwork or tag teaming as far as me and other specialties. It's usually just the eye guys. And
Yeah.
then if something else needs to happen, we send them to the other people. Or actually, usually we're the ones that get the patient last.
Yeah. How's
Yeah.
your work-life balance?
Balance? What's that?
I know.
Um,
I know, right?
and not very good right now. No, I usually try and keep it as meaningful as possible. I've got 4 kids, and so I try to make sure I make time for them. And in my specialty, you can. I don't do a lot of see a lot of trauma anymore. I do a lot of cataract surgery and glaucoma. So I do a lot of office work. So my after hours emergencies and stuff are very limited. As far as what you're looking for in choosing a specialty, you can't really go wrong with this because uh, we're a very low emergency, low acuity kind of specialty. Most people don't have emergencies. I can count on 2 hands the number of particular types of emergencies I could see in a given couple of years, and they're pretty few and far between. So I'm usually able to leave the office by 5:30 or 6, and I'll get here at 7:30. But weekends are off usually. So as far as balance goes, it's not hard from a specialty standpoint. But if you're busy like I am, it can be tough to maintain that balance just because you're trying to do what's right for the patient and take care of everybody and do it all correctly and also take care of your family. So that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest challenge I have as far as balance goes.
If you could go back, are you glad you have a private practice, or would you try and would have been employed by someone or a group?
Oh no, I'm glad I have private practice. I'm definitely not an academic medicine kind of guy. Me and white coats and stuffiness, that just doesn't, not at all, zero.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like private practice. When I graduated residency in 2007, pardon me, I went to practice out in Oregon for 6 years, and I was part of a nonprofit multi-specialty Catholic medical group, and so every specialty under the sun, and we were one department of that, and it was more like Kaiser Permanente kind of employment, and this is really my first true private practice experience out here in Nashville, and I like it because you get to call a little more of your own shots if you want to push your interests and your time more towards cataract surgery or LASIK surgery, or you want to do more refractive surgery, glaucoma. You can kind of push yourself in whatever direction you really want to go to and establish your niche. You don't have to do a fellowship if you don't want, and I didn't. I went straight out of practice, but you can still kind of make your niche.
I think what we hear commonly that deters physicians from doing private practice is being a part of the administration part of that.
Administrative headaches, hiring, firing, billing, worrying about all that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that stuff sucks. It does, but when you look at the other end of the seesaw there, I mean, you've got problems being in hospitals, groups, or academic medicine. So it's a plus minus, it's give and take, and what is most important to you. Having more recognition or research opportunities in academic medicine versus having more opportunity to kind of practice how you want, where you want, with who you want.
Yeah, the autonomy.
Yeah, exactly. But then you deal with business headaches. So there's always something. For me, I'd rather have the autonomy and deal with the business headaches.
Makes sense. So we're almost out of time, but one last question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give for someone coming out of training and that's just about to start going into the workforce as a physician, just different specialties? Is there anything that you wish you knew? Like the physician that we interviewed yesterday said, I wish I would have looked more into finances, because you get into the world of physician and there's just so much to know. So if you had any advice for someone ready to jump into the physician career world that you wish you knew back then.
Yeah, I'd probably echo what the physician yesterday told you. It really is, going to medical school is like drinking through a fire hose. It's overwhelming. And so you dedicate, 100 plus hours a week to learning the stuff, and then just as much to practicing the medicine. And there's so much to know, you could never know it all. So we're always constantly running and keeping up and trying to know the latest things in our specialty. I would say, yeah, I mean, I think it would be a real good idea to, maybe take a basic finance class or two, have a personal financial consultant who might be able to steer you and guide you. And, obviously, I think if you can continue to live on your residency salary even after you graduate from residency, and then just pay off debts, then that's probably a really huge thing to do. It's not easily done, because by the time most of us get through residency practice, we're sick of starving ourselves and sacrificing. We would like a little bit of comfort, so it's hard to do. But for the ones that I know have done that, they're really happy they did it, because now they really have the financial freedom to do what they want to do, whether they want to open private practice or work part-time in Guam or whatever. And if you're saddled with a bunch of student debt and bills and things like that, it becomes harder and harder to do that, especially as you get later and later in your career. So that's probably a wise thing to do, which I did not do very well.
Like you see, like athletes, right? There's when they come into all this money, they have people that try to come in and mentor them and give them advice on how to, spend wisely and not, go overboard. Is that part of when you're getting ready to finish residency? Again, you're getting you're getting paid, but are there people that come in there, and is that part of your training to kind of help balance your money, or no?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And absolutely not. I mean, if you have a residency program that is progressive enough to think about that and might give a 1 or 2 hour lecture to the residents, that's pretty good. I don't know of hardly any residencies that do that. And even in medical schools, there's a huge chunk of the equation that's missing from our medical school residency education. We just don't get it. So we get that through the trial of fire, going out. It should be done better.
We deal with, we're dealing with residents usually, and where I recruit are smaller. I was actually out in Monticello, Kentucky 2 weeks ago, not too far from, like 3 hours from Nashville, but $500,000 in Monticello, Kentucky compared to $500,000 in LA, you don't need to really make that much. You don't.
Big
Yeah,
difference. Big difference. Yeah.
That's actually a good way to put it.
And when you've been living on $35,000 or $40,000 a year as a resident and nothing before that, it's really easy to just go, okay, I can finally get a house. I can finally start having kids. I can finally, go to my Super Bowl game that I want to go to once a year. And those are all fine things, but it's hard to have delayed gratification when you've been suffering so long, and you'll still continue to suffer. Medicine's a very, very difficult profession. It's just very difficult. You really have to be dedicated. You have to really want to do this because there's regulation and garbage that comes at you from left and right. And if you couldn't do it because you love it, and I would leave. If I couldn't do it, if I had a case specialist, I would just leave. I love ophthalmology that much, and medicine is that difficult to practice. I would just leave the specialty and go teach.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Bustos, thank you so much for spending the time to talk to us today and letting us get to know you. This was awesome.
Thank you, Summer, today. I sure appreciate the time.
Cool. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Dr. Bustos. Pleasure. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all our listeners. If you'd like to be notified when new episodes air, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you to Pacific Companies. Without you guys, this podcast would not be possible. If you'd like to be a guest or for more information, go to www.pacificcompanies.com.